Hey guys, welcome to the sixth episode of the Zamor Design Podcast. Today I have Annie as my guest. She is a friend of mine that I've met through a live, actually. I think it was a TL Yarn Craft, that's Tony, live video. And we started chatting in the live, and she was telling me about her amigurumi. And then we continued on to talk afterwards in DM. And she is one of the first friends I've made on Instagram, and she is one of my longest friends on Instagram. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's welcome Annie. Hey, Annie. So, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. I had breakfast, so I'm really good. I had coffee, so I'm even better.
What time is it for you now? It's
Right
9
now, it's
p.m. for me.
9 a.m. for me.
So you're exactly 12 hours.
Yes, so it's easy to kind of calculate time with you.
It is. It is. So can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your crochet journey?
Okay, my name is Annie, and I'm from Anniegurumi, and I am a mother to a son, and it started off as something that I would just make for friends, make for family, and then now I kind of like moved into designing. Before I was selling my dolls, and then I was just getting sick of it because it was just like a lot of making the same thing over and over again. But now I'm really into designing and making stories with my son with these dolls that we design, and we live in Hong Kong. Yeah, that's about it.
You know what? I can totally relate to the fact that when you're selling, it's so much harder to sell, first of all. And second of all, it's so much harder to make the same thing over and over again.
Yes. And I think also people don't really value amigurumi in handmade markets. I don't know about I'm sure it goes for the same for like shawls and, hats and wearables. But sometimes when people are like, because I had a few handmade markets here, and it was very successful. I'm very thankful for this. But then, it's like 50% of the people would be like, why is it priced like this?
Exactly.
It's so expensive. I could get the same thing in this area called Mongkok here, which is an area where they sell fake things. So there are people that have like fake dolls and things like that. And I said, well, then, you can go there.
I think with crochet in general, when you're a maker and selling it, you have to really like find the right markets for it. Most people don't understand the time it takes and like the cost it takes to make something handmade. And it's just, I think, and that's why I stopped selling handmade too, because nobody really understood it. Even unfortunately, friends and family, when you tell them your price, and they're usually like,
Yes. They're like,
no,
really? Is that the friends and family discount? I was like, yes. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's hard because a lot of people don't have the money for the value of the item. And so that I understand. But then also, as a business owner trying to make a living, you can't undervalue your items either. Exactly. So, it's tough. So I'm like really respectful, like, good job, guys, who are like so successful at handmade markets. But it's just, if I do the markets, then I don't have time to design with my son. So that's another issue. So actually designing is kind of the way to go for me. So I'm very happy that it's kind of evolved into, starting out amigurumi, making all these wonky looking toys, and then moving on into maybe, getting a little bit more confident and doing handmade markets, and then now designing. So I'm very happy about that.
So what made you decide to focus more on amigurumi? Like for me, I used to make amigurumi, but like the heads, everything was usually crocheted with that. I know if you scroll all the way down in my feed, you'll see some of them.
I've seen some of them. They're not bad.
I think I'm going to start archiving some of those because I don't think people should ever have to see that again.
I love seeing other friends' past journeys, because it's like how much you've grown from even looking at my own, right? Sometimes I'm like, ooh, that's a weird looking thing,
Sometimes sometimes I look at my stuff, I'm like, why would people even like this?
Come on, this is not true. It's
Oh
so
my
great.
God. Some of like my 2007, 2004 like things I was
Ooh.
making were just like,
Yeah. See, you've been making a lot longer than me. So, 2007, I don't even think I knew what a crochet hook was or knitting needles. So how
I
did
was always
start?
crafty. So I learned to craft I always learned to crochet when I was 8. So
Wow,
it's
no
been
wonder.
yeah.
It's just ingrained in you. No, it was like a struggle for me. Learning crochet, I was like, what am I supposed to do with this one hook and this one yarn and make it into 3D? You know, it's hard to get started in crochet. I have to admit, it's knitting is like all of it is on the needle, so you can actually physically count those stitches. You know, but crochet, it's like, there it is. You know, and sometimes finding the stitches is very challenging. So yeah.
I think that's why I like Tunisian crochet too, just because all the stitches are there. If I make a mistake, I can just pull it out.
That's right. It's very easy. I learned Tunisian first.
Really?
Which is crazy. Yeah, people did not even know what that thing was. They're like, what are you doing with that long crochet hook? It's like the metal one. And not the double-ended one where you can kind of go in a circle, like the flat one, you know? And I think they were called Afghan hooks.
I think so. I think that's what they call it.
And so I was like, everybody's getting a scarf. Everybody's getting a Tunisian simple stitch scarf. And people were like, Annie, stop making the scarves. These are rolling up, right? Because the Tunisian simple stitch.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I'm not making borders. I'm not making lace. I'm not going to do honeycomb stitch, right? Because those stay flat. But I was like, no, you're getting a curled scarf. It is a unique.
For them.
I was like, Christmas, this is for you. This is for you.
Just giving out.
Curled scarves that no one can wear. So I learned Tunisian first, which is crazy. And I don't even remember who or where I learned it from, because it was probably 2009 or something like that when I learned. And then I was making Tunisian scarves, and then, you know, like everybody's kind of like trying to find a nice way to tell me, stop. So then I took a break from Tunisia and I said, oh, all right, no one's going to wear my scarves, so might as well not waste my money. And I was like, at the time I was a student, so I didn't have much money, and I didn't have a way to buy gifts for my friends, like my girlfriends. At the time, nobody was having babies because we were students. So, and Christmas time and birthday time, I felt really guilty because I wanted to give a gift. I know gifts are not that important, but for me, I wanted something special for my friends. And so I was like, this book at Barnes & Noble, because I was in New York at the time. I was like, oh, this book. It's called Stitch and Bitch. Do you remember that book?
No.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, but that is the legit title of that book. And it was this really like super modern, super fun book that teaches you everything from like accessories. And they had a few amigurumis in there too. And so that got me into crochet, and I would make all of their patterns. And guess what? The patterns are excellent. It's just me not knowing how to make any of them. And so I just made all these like really weird looking stuff from that book, and it's not their fault. It's because I was a beginner. And then I was like, hey friends, here's an ear warmer. And they're like, oh
no.
They're like, thanks. I always wanted one of these. I think I'll wear it on a special occasion. So I was like, oh, maybe they don't really like it. And then it just kind of morphed into, I guess, like over the years, I just did it as, it made me feel good when I was crocheting. And whatever, I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And I think on the outside, I was very, very happy. Like I'm a very like happy person, but at the time I was so stressed out. I was nervous. I was very anxious. I didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't know how I was going to live day to day. And so then crochet kind of like gave me a moment when I'm doing it. You can't do anything else. Your hands are busy. your eyes are busy, and then your mind is busy. So you literally cannot think about when you're a beginner. I mean, of now, I'm like Netflix and Hook, right? Like, because now I'm used to it. But at the time, I was like, okay, how many stitches was that? Oh, I have to count 1, 2, 3. So my mind was busy, and for that moment that I was crocheting, I did not have a worry. I did not worry about things. And then eventually, it just kind of felt like a way to relax and to force myself to slow down a bit. And yeah, and then it just kind of I don't know. Then friends started having babies, and I still didn't have money. So, and then I started making amigurumi from patterns that I would buy at. Actually, let's be real. I didn't buy it at Barnes and Noble because I didn't have money, but I did go to Barnes and Noble and write it down because I did not have money. Yeah, and then so baby showers started happening, and then my amigurumi started to look similar.
That's what was pictured.
Similar, not exactly like the pattern, because again, I don't know what I was doing at the time. The internet wasn't as I don't know, it wasn't as big as it is now, where you can find so many tips and tricks. There's Pinterest, there's YouTube. I mean, there was YouTube at the time, but there was no videos. Like your podcast videos would have been so helpful if I had watched those. So, and it just kind of evolved that way. And then I had some fertility troubles after I got married. I had a surgery that I had to get rid of some uterine polyps, and one was the size of a tennis ball. Actually, they were saying it was like really big. Luckily, not dangerous. Nothing was dangerous. It was just kind of difficult to get pregnant because of these health issues. And then I got this surgery to remove it on my birthday.
Oh my God.
I was really like, I don't want to use depressed lightly, but I was in a really bad place because I really wanted to be a mom. And then I was thinking, you know what? Great. Let's do it on my birthday. Let's do like that's the best gift I can give myself. And then a few months later, on my husband's birthday, I got really sick. I went to the ER, and guess what? I found out I was pregnant.
Oh.
On my husband's birthday, which is crazy. And then my son is born, and I was just thinking, like, my goodness, this is just a blessing, like, just how is this happening? My life sucked before,
No, your life sounds like it's like a journey that you start where, like, in the beginning, where everything is, you think it's hard, but it's preparing you for what it is now.
Yeah, I think so. And then, my son was born, and I was like, gosh, I just want to be the best mom that I can be. And I said, how can I actively play with my son when he is just a baby? Like, what can you do? It's not like you can just play, right? They just lie down and do nothing, right? Like, hey, give me food. Yeah. And then I started to make amigurumi. And then I made these dolls, and I was just like, he's so young. He's just a baby. So it started off as nursery rhymes, right? So I would make like little piggies, or I would make like, I can't even think of any nursery rhymes. It's been so long.
But I know, was the lion one part of that one you made for that?
That was actually a lot later, but I didn't design actually when he was born. I just made like little whatever dolls, and then I would just sing the songs and then let him squish around with it. And then he became, I think he was around, I want to say like 2 or 3. He was much older when I started designing my own dolls, like purposely for him, to kind of like imaginative play, teach a lesson, or maybe like just be silly to make him laugh. There's a lot of things I've made that I was just like, he was like, oh, what are we learning today? Nothing. Did it make you laugh? Did it make you happy? Then great. And then other times it's like to kind of introduce him to maybe issues that are difficult to explain to kids, like diversity or empathy, or I'm trying to think like bullies and things like that. Like I was trying to teach him these lessons on like, what can you do from your end, right? You can only control yourself. You cannot control other people. So these are kind of like lessons, not all the time.
Now, I do like the series you had where you were making little things, like each of them were telling a story. I like the one about the moon, like the
Oh, thank
I love
you.
that one. I like because like that was the mouse one, right?
Yeah, that was the Jade Rabbit, which is actually a folk tale in it originated in China, but
Mm-hmm.
then it kind of branched off to East Asia. So everybody has their kind of like own version of it. You know, like Japan has their own version, Korea has their own version, Vietnam has their own version. So it was nice to introduce him to it since he's Korean and he's also Chinese. So it's I told him well, originally it was like this, but in my country it's like this. Similar, but you know, there's a
always
variant.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
So yeah, that it became fun, and then I had him kind of draw things. I said, "Hey, what doll do you want Oma to make next?" And then he would be like, "Can you make a doll from the Dwarf Planet series?" I was like, "There's a Dwarf Planet named series." Like what? Okay. I said, "Okay, sure." You know, like what do you want it to look like? I was just like, okay, Dwarf Planet name series. How do you spell that? I mean, like kids are so brilliant nowadays, right? There's so much information. And then he said, oh, it's I can't even, because I'm going to say it wrong. He said, it's the blah, blah, blah planet from the sun in between blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I'm thinking, wow, he's so imaginative. Gosh, he's so good. I looked it up. It's like for real. And then I was like, ooh, I did not know that.
Like, oh my God, my son is smarter than me.
I mean, I think I've established that when he was like 2. I was like, woo, he knows a lot more than me now. And now he's 7, so he's able to kind of sketch with me. And then, I mean, I want to preface this by I am not an artist. Like I'm not a illustrator. I'm not trained in any of this stuff. It's just something that I wanted to do as a bonding time with him. And so I would just be like, hey, just draw something and draw whatever you want to do. And then let's talk about what we can make the story about. Or sometimes it would be the opposite. Like I would say something like, for example, it's a lot of typhoon type stuff happening in Hong Kong. There's typhoons and monsoons, so it's always like thunderstorming, heavy rains, heavy winds, and it can be quite scary for a young kid. He's not scared of it anymore. He's, big kid now. But when he was younger, he was really scared of the typhoon, and it is scary. It will shake your whole entire apartment, the lightning, the wind, and then things will rattle. You'll see like things flying in the air.
Lord, no.
Crazy. It's kind of like a hurricane. Actually, it is a hurricane, but we call it typhoon over here. And so he would be really scared about that. And then I remember he was very young, so it's not that he designed this part. It was more on my end. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, okay, what can I do to comfort him? And then I made some dolls. I made mermaids. So I actually have it.
I've seen the mermaid. I like those.
Yeah, it was these mermaids.
Yes.
So because I was like, there's no way mermaids are covering up their chest in the sea, right? They're just like free. So I said, I don't want him to feel like that I don't feel like I need to explain too much. Like, why are girls covered up here, but men are not covered up? So I made the women and the men mermaids exactly the same, just hair longer, hair shorter, whatever. Yeah. And they're kind of like, he said, is this one a boy? I was like, well, do you want it to be a boy? Like long hair boy, no problem, right? It's up to you. And so I wanted him to be able to just kind of like take these off and switch it around if he wanted to. So these are all kind of like wigs, I guess, so if he wanted to change it so that this one was a boy, but it's pink, no problem, so, and I said that these mermaids were living in our harbor because we live in between a harbor and the deep China Sea, and Kowloon is on the other side, which is also part of Hong Kong. So I said, oh, these mermaids are in there. They're fighting the typhoon monster. And then he said, but why are they fighting? Why are they fighting him? And I was like, oh, yeah, true. Like why is he has that natural empathetic heart where I was trying to comfort him. And I said, you're right. Because you know why? When people are angry or they're lashing out at people or something is happening, it's always coming from a place of hurt, usually. Happy people are not mean to other people.
That
So I
is
said, you know what? You're right. These mermaids are going to talk to the typhoon and say, hey, you look upset. Are you okay? And then calm the typhoon down. And the typhoon is normal wind, normal. And so we use that opportunity to talk about like bullying, right? Like if somebody bullies you, you have to understand it's not about you. Something must be happening, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, or whether it's just something that they're struggling with themselves. It's a good opportunity for you to not take it personally, calm yourself down, and try to understand that person. Of course, if you try to understand that person's not gonna, give in, not meet you halfway, then there's nothing you can do. You just walk away. But and then there was another opportunity to kind of stick in diversity, to tell him about how important it is to be accepting of all people, to notice that people are different from yourself, to learn from other cultures and other languages. So that's why, I try to make my dolls in different skin tones for him to see.
I love that. I love the fact that you use this like to teach your son, to make your son more of a like. Well, from talking to you in the past, I know that your son is a very he's very in tune with other people's emotions. He's very in tune with his surrounding. So I love that you are making him a more well-rounded person.
Thank you. I'm trying. I wish there was a manual. There really isn't, right? So you learn best when you play, I think.
That is
instead
true.
of and I think books are also a wonderful resource. So, I'm like always ordering books, and I actively try to look for books that are authored by, different like diverse authors. I'm trying and still waiting for it because of COVID, so it's taking forever. But I try to expose him to, without trying to use my words so much, but my actions, I guess, so that he can learn a little. Because if somebody's like, you should read books like this, you should read books like that, you should think like this, and I I wouldn't. I would be like, well, no, and I'm 41, so I would be like, no. So, yeah. So I try to. I mean, I'm sorry. I keep saying I. It's actually my husband and I. So we, because we are on the same page. We also had a discussion the other day, and then my son was like, marriage is between a man and a woman, right? I was like, yeah. And he was like, what about if a man wants to marry a man? I was like, yeah. And he was like, what about a woman with a woman? Yeah. And he was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, why not? If you love that person, they love you back, why not? And then he was like, oh, okay. And it's like just like
that.
Nothing. Normal. It's like it wasn't even like a conversation. It was just kind of like, oh, cool.
But it makes you wonder how long he's been thinking about that before he actually asked it.
Yeah, so. I think because the school he goes to here is quite diverse, not only in culture, but I think orientation, like some of the teachers, right? So there are some gay teachers there. And so sometimes people would be like, oh, who's your husband, Mrs. blah, blah, blah? And they would be like, oh, it's Mrs. blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, what? And so I think because of that, I mean, they're not his teachers yet, because they're like the old, maybe the secondary school, high school type kids, right? But he hears it on the playground because it's one big school. And so I think maybe that might have been why. Because like kids are like, oh, did you hear that teacher was married to a woman? Blah, 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 blah. And then he would come home. So marriage, Yeah. And then, with everything that's happening on the news, and, there are kids are very perceptive to the news, even if they don't directly watch it, people are talking about it. So sometimes, he'll be like, oh, why did that, like when George Floyd happened, he was like, oh, I heard about this man named George Floyd. What happened? And I said, you know what? It's a really sad, very sad and scary story. Do you really want to hear this? If you do, I'm happy to share, but it is a very sad story with no happy ending. So I warn him because he's very sensitive. So I want to respect that boundary first. And then he said, oh, yeah, but I mean, I hear that name and we're in Hong Kong, right? So, so it's amazing that he, a 7-year-old, has heard this news because I don't have the TV on. So,
well, like you said, it's probably like from school. He's hearing other people, like kids have their phones in school. They're talking about it.
Parents are talking about it, which I think is wonderful because I never say no. I always ask him first. I said, there's no happy ending. It's a little bit scary. Would you like me to tell you, you know, like the smaller version or the whole thing? And so then I explained it to him. And then he was just confused. You know, he was like, but he didn't do anything. Like, but why? And I said, you know what? Sometimes when you grow up and you're not exposed to knowing that all people are equal, right? Even if we look different, right? We look different. We eat different foods. We speak different languages. We live in different places. We may do things differently, but we are all human beings. And that is sad. And what's more sad is he lived in the country that he's from. You know?
I know.
It's
just like, well, it's a lot of people, unfortunately, some people in this country don't feel like people who look like me belong in this country.
Yeah, and it's really discouraging because it's 2020. You know? I mean, time to like get with the times. We are modern people, you know? So yeah, and it's again another opportunity for me to, you know, discuss diversity and what you can do on your end and how and to discuss like also for me as a parent to talk to him to see where he's at, you know, where with his thinking so that I can if he's not thinking exactly if he's got misinformed about whatever, then it's an opportunity for me to kind of like have these discussions with him while he's young. And so I try not to be like, that's wrong. You should not be like this because I'm not that kind of a parent. I want him to digest the information and then really think about it. Does that sound fair? You know, what do you think? And it's always asking questions for him to think logically and think with his heart, you know? And so he was just like, I feel like I'm going to cry because that news really made me really sad, you know? I know. I was like, stop crying. Because it's scary, you know?
It is.
It's really scary. And then he doesn't understand, you know? He's like, but I don't understand. Like, but like, why does it matter that he's Black? And I was like, yeah, exactly. Why does it? And so he doesn't understand. And actually, when I see that, I feel like encouraged because I feel like, okay, good. You know, at least you can think clearly, right? It's common sense, right? People are people, regardless of the color, you know? And I think it's wonderful that we're different colors. We speak differently. We eat different. I love food, by the way. I love different cultures. So, so for me, everything is like, everything that makes us different is what makes us interesting, you know? And so I tell him that and he gets it, but why can't other people? You know?
Well, I think it's just the fact that people are
this is a
product
tangent
of the environment that they are raised in.
Yes, it's true.
You are raising your son in an environment where he is seeing like a big diversity. He is around people from all types of walk of life, and he has you guys as parents who actually talk to him about those things, who actually let him think for himself, let him see things from different perspectives. So some people don't get that. Some people are raised a certain way that this is how it should be. This is how it is. This is why we don't want these people here.
Yeah, and they can't think differently because as a child, they grew up this way. It's ingrained in them. And it's really, I don't know, what can you do, you know? So all I can do is what I can control, which is like a lesson that, you know, is the core of everything that I teach him. You can't change other people. However, you can be a good example, right? So you can you can control yourself. You can educate yourself. You can learn. If you don't know, I told him, you don't know, you just ask, right? No big, me too. I told him, no better than you. I just have like a leg up on you because I was born earlier than you. You know? But I also don't, and I'm sure by the time I'm 60, I still don't know everything, right? So I told him, you know what, your mom's not, I'm not like the almighty smartest person in the world. You should only listen to me. If you disagree with me, you tell me, and respectfully. Come on, let's be real, I don't want that in my face, I just want respectfully, let's talk about it, right? And if I don't know the answer to it, we look it up or we ask a friend, Sometimes he'll be like, oh, what kind of food did they eat in Kenya? I was like, hey Siri. I'm like, let me ask my personal assistant. Hey Siri. And he just has like these random questions and I love it. And we, when COVID first hit here, which was in February, and then they had online learning, I wanted him to learn something new every day, right? So I have this gigantic poster of the world, so that you pick a country, pick one every day, and we learn about it. And Kenya was one of them, so we learned a whole bunch of stuff. And then we learned about Nigeria and South Africa, and then he didn't pick Thailand because we've been there, but I forget which was it Cambodia? I forget. He just like, different places, and it was a way for him to be exposed to diversity and other cultures. And sometimes we listen to like traditional music from whichever country that we're in, because I was a musician before, so music's really important to me. So I don't know. Do I know what I'm doing? Probably not, but I'm trying my best.
Well, I think that's what you're doing. You are doing great because you're trying your best. Trying your best is, I don't have kids, but I've been around people who have kids, and I feel like from what I've seen, those who are trying their best are like doing the world and their children a big favor.
Oh, thanks for your encouragement. That's all you can do. You just hope for the best and be a good person. Yeah, so that was kind of a tangent, but that's kind of the core of my amigurumi. Usually, if there's some kind of a lesson to be had, it's usually sprouted from some kind of an idea, conversation, the news. It could be, it could just be me, being weird, just like, oh, I just want to be funny, so I'm going to make a random story about nothing,
So we've been talking about amigurumi and everything. I know some people don't even know what that is. Do you want to tell us what amigurumi is?
Sure. Amigurumi, the word itself is from Japan. So ami actually means knitted or crocheted. I think it's like knitted. And then gurumi comes from a different Japanese word, means wrapped up. So a lot of when you put those two words together, it's like a knitted wrapped up toy. So that's what amigurumi means. So it started in Japan, but then it kind of spread worldwide, became commercialized and things like that. So it's just some yarn, stuff it up, close it up. Yeah, so that's amigurumi. It's just basically anything that's knitted, plushy toy. Yeah.
Do you think it came from like the Japanese, because I feel like in Japanese culture, there's like a love of everything animated. And I was listening to a podcast. They were talking about how much they love mascots over there. They have mascot for everything, like literally everything. Yes. So do you think that came from that?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I don't know the exact history of it, but I do know that they just, combined those two words to make it a thing. But I mean, that's just Asia, girl. Like everybody over here, just mascot, cute, everything. Like, oh, let's sell some I'm like exaggerating over here, like beef marrow. Boom. Mascot. No, it's not to that point, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is like all the packaging is super cute. Even in Hong Kong, it's super cute. Korea too. Korea, super cute. Everything. So yeah. I think they just like everything to be adorable. I love it.
I enjoy looking at it. I'm not a big fan of like anime and stuff like that, but I just love I'm very interested and intrigued by Asian cultures.
Yeah, it's so amazing that even within Asia, even within China itself, it's so diverse, in culture. It's like, it's amazing, so yeah. Yes. Sorry. I'm like, if I start talking about that, we'll be here for another hour.
All right. So can you walk us through your process of coming up with an idea? I know you already said like you go through the news and stuff like that. Like, so once you guys have an idea, how do you like choose the yarn? How do you choose like how you're going to make it, the colors and stuff like that for it?
Okay. So basically, I'll just talk about recently because, you know, it's been like huge learning process even up until last year. So sometimes it just really is random. It's really random sometimes. I either it's my son saying, "Can you make a giraffe that has a short neck?" Or I don't know. He's never said that, but he'll ask me like, "Can you make this?" And I'll be like, "All right." And then I said, "Can you kind of draw it out so I can?" Because my thinking and his thinking, obviously, we're different ages, so, and also different genders. So I don't exactly know how he wants the doll to look. So I said, "Oh, can you just kind of like draw something out for me and let me see?" And then he'll draw it on a piece of paper, and then I won't even let him color it or anything. I just say, you know, just draw an outline. "Oh, what's this guy's story?" I'll be like, "What's going on with him?" He's like, "I don't know. I just want this doll." And I said, "What kind of stuff does he like to eat?" And then he'll say like, this. And I said, "Oh, I like to eat that too. Where does he like to go?" Or she like to go, whichever. I don't, you know, because sometimes it's a he, sometimes it's a it, sometimes it's a she. You know, like, I don't know what it is. And I'll say, "Oh, does this have friends? Do they have friends?" "Oh, yeah, his friend is da 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 da." "Okay. Is it a nice one or is he mean?" And it's like always nice, you know, it's never mean. And I will just kind of ask him questions and I will just write it down and I'll say, what kind of stuff, what kind of hobbies does it? And then from there we kind of like make a story together without him knowing we're making a story, you know, kind of brainstorming. And then I write it out and I said, "Oh, how funny would it be if this doll did this?" And then he said, "Yeah, but what if he did this?" And then it kind of builds like this. And then once I have that figured out, you know, kind of like his general story, and then if there is a lesson to be had, I try to like insert it into the story. And then once that's done, I generally ask him like, "Oh, what color would you like your doll to be? Are they wearing clothes? Are they wearing shoes? Are they wearing hats? If so, could you draw it and then take your colored whatevers, you know, whatever markers or pencils or whatever you want. And can you just like, you know, color? You don't have to be like super artist over here, just so mommy has an idea of what you want it to look like." Because sometimes, you know, he's in the mood for something like bright, like neon colors, and sometimes he's in the mood for like muted colors. And so I kind of want to respect that. And recently, almost all of my dolls, I would say like 99% of them I use Hobium yarns because I work with them. And so they send me yarn to kind of work on my projects or like to work on other projects with them. And they're very generous. So they kind of, you know, I'm very lucky because I have all of the colors of whatever yarn that I want. And then that way I can freely design. And so sometimes I will just tell him, go in mommy's yarn drawers. And I mean, I don't even want to show you that picture because it's like to the ceiling. So I'll just say, you look in these drawers and you find the yarn colors that you like, but you know, I have it, each drawer is the same yarn. So that way, at least the weights are the same because I cannot even figure out if it's different weighted yarn. So I say, you look in this drawer and then you tell me which color do you like for the body? Which color do you like for their clothes? Things like that. And sometimes the color choices are like so good, you know, like the complementary colors that he does. And sometimes I'm like, ooh, you know, oh, okay. And then I will make that in the colors that he wants, even if in my aesthetic, you know, because I want everything to be balanced. Even if in my eyes, I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't like that color choice, but because you like it, I will make it in that color. Yeah. So then if I make the pattern for it, I will try to pick colors that I think people will like and then use that for the patterns. But for him, it's special because he's like, oh, I can have this lime green and I can't even think of a color that doesn't go with lime green because everything matches lime green. Yeah. So if I were to make it, you know, in my head, I would be like, oh, like a hot magenta plus a lime green plus a, I don't know, like a yellow or an orange would look awesome with that, or even a purple, whatever, because lime green is awesome. Let's be real. You know, I can't even think of a color that doesn't match. But it's rare that I'm kind of like, that color combination is a little strange, you know? But I try to not make him feel like his choice is not good. Mm-hmm. I just know that from a business standpoint, if I maybe use that color combination, maybe it won't sell because it's not aesthetically pleasing mm-hmm. to other people. So for the pattern, I'll try to use something. But actually, to be honest, I can't even think of a time where the color combination didn't work because everything that I've made with him, I think everything has been what he chose. So really? Yeah. And sometimes he'll say like, "Oh, what color looks good with this?" And I say, "Oh, I don't want to tell him what colors look good." So I said, "You decide. You take the marker and then you say, "Oh, hot magenta. I love hot magenta." You scribble hot magenta. You get your other markers and color next to it and look at the combinations and see what looks good to you. And so he got really into that. It's like I have like pieces of paper everywhere, different color combinations. So I try to like not tell him what to do. I just try to say, you try it, right? You try. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Oh, this color doesn't look very good." And then I'm like, "Oh, is that what you think? Okay, that's fine." In my head, I was like,
thank God. Like, thank goodness.
But, you know, of course, it's like subjective. You know, if you like that color combination, more power to you. It's not going to ruin my day, right? So, but inside, I'm like, phew.
I won't have to put that on my feed.
But even when it's, you know, color combinations that I'm not really fond of, I will put it on my feed. You know, I'll be like, my son chose this. I'm proud of that. You know, so it's no problem. Yeah, so it's something like that. Or sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I just get an idea and then I just say like, oh, I don't know, maybe I read a storybook and it inspired me for some kind of a lesson about if you're different, it's okay. Something like that. And then I'd be like, oh, if you're different, it's okay. I know this lesson. I should make a doll. So sometimes it's like random, or other times it's like, I just have like some weird yarn that's really fuzzy. And I'm like, whoa, what am I supposed to do with this yarn? You know? And then I think, oh, you know what? I'll just make a shape, like whatever. I'll just make a basic circle, and it's like a fur ball. Like I'll slap some eyes on it and call it a doll.
There you go.
And then sometimes those simple dolls just make him chuckle, you know. And so I don't know. It's like it's really random, but I'm very lucky that I get to work with Hobium, who, whatever I ask for, they're very supportive of me, which I'm very thankful. I'm not a huge like numbers girl, right? I think of a doll, he thinks of a doll, and then I make that doll. And then it's usually like, how do I do this? This math is so hard. And then I figure it out. I get it tested. And then if people like it, I hope they will buy it. So if they don't, then that's okay too. I don't lose any money from, you know, my designs not selling. But then occasionally, you know, maybe I release a pattern and nobody buys it. And then like a year later, so many people buy it. And I'm thinking like, what? Where have you been? Thank you.
Probably exploded on Pinterest somewhere.
Probably. And Pinterest, I don't even know how to use that thing.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the rhino behind you?
Oh, sure. I would love to tell you.
It's on the other side.
Mirror image. So hard. So this rhino, actually, I've been trying to think. I had a topic that I wanted to do because one day I would like to publish a children's book. This is just a thought, not a actual happening thing. It's just something I'm discussing with a friend who happens to be an author, and she's about to publish her book. And so I told her that I want to publish a series, or maybe pattern series. I'm not really sure yet, but it's called Curious Animals with Unusual Occupations. It's a long subject. because everything, I like things that sound unusual. I guess that, curious animals with unusual occupations. So this rhinoceros, it was the first one that I thought of. I have in my iPad, I sketched out of maybe about 6 animals with unusual occupations, that doesn't fit the stereotype. So with this rhino was the first one. And I was thinking like, the rhino sparked from unicorn. And I was like, oh gosh, I love unicorns. I wish they existed today. Oh gosh, we would be best friends if we had a unicorn on the earth, and it started off this way with a discussion with my son, because I was like, I love magic. So I told him, oh gosh, I would love to have a unicorn as a friend. He's like, yeah, you would really love that. Like, oh, I guess the modern day unicorn would be the rhinoceros. And he's like, yeah, because they have a horn. I said, they have 2 horns. So it started off thinking about unicorns. And then I was like, oh yeah, rhinoceroses. And then he goes, yeah, they're really big, aren't they? And they're really rough. And then I was thinking, yeah, what's the opposite of rough? And then he said, soft or like gentle. And then I said, oh, kind of like ballerinas. And then I was thinking, oh, kind of like ballerina. And so then I was thinking, would a rhinoceros be a ballerina? Unlikely in a traditional sense, right? Because they're too big, they're too heavy, or like whatever else. And I'm sure lots of girls and boys that want to be dancers have been told, you don't have the right body type. Your feet are the wrong shape. You're not tall enough. You're not thin enough. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And so I wanted him to know that you can have a passion and not have that traditional, like whatever talent that people are scouting for. You just work hard. You do your best. If you love what you do, you will find a way to make it work.
You don't have to conform to society also.
Exactly. And so I said, you want to be a boy ballerina? No problem, right? You like pink? No problem. I mean, he likes green, but I was just explaining to him. And then I also said, if somebody tells you can't do it because of the way you look, the size that you are, the gender that you are, whatever culture you're from, it's wrong. You just work at it, do your best, love what you do, and you will find a way, right? Like it will work. I was trying to tell him, look at this. I would go see her. I would go see her dancing away. And so I wanted to show him that even if traditionally people tell you can't be graceful because of the way you look, yeah, you can. It's not because of the way you look, right? It's the way you are. So I was trying to teach him about that. And then it kind of evolved into that story about like perseverance and not letting bullies get to you, right? You are who you are. You believe who you are, not what other people say about you. Granted, if other people are trying to help you, accept the help. Because we can always be better, even if we are considered the best at whatever we are, right? So because sometimes he'll be like, because he'll be, oh, I have this music homework, and I was just like, oh, you're a little flat, and I was like, oh, calm down, mommy, it's not a big deal, because I've been playing music, I've been playing piano since I was 3. And then my whole life, I went to school, I performed, I went on tour, whatever. And so he's no, it's not. It's really, I didn't like it. So that's another thing that I don't want to push on him, right? Like just because you happen to have some kind of a talent, that talent is useless unless you love what you do. You could be the best at science, but if you don't love it, then what can you really contribute if you don't love what you do? It's not. So instead of trying to focus in on your talent and then making it your passion, no, you figure out what your passion is and then you work on it. Yeah. So it should, I think it's like the older generation, right? Like trying to exploit what you're good at for the sake of your future, which I understand, right? Like the way parents think. But for me, it's more love what you do, work your best at it, work your hardest, and then you'll excel because you love it, So so that's how that rhino came about.
I like that. I love how you come up with your ideas and your designs and stuff like that. It's just like, for me, my ideas come out, they are so boring. You're just like, oh, I saw
No.
it is.
Stop.
Because
It's
I'm like,
not.
oh, I saw this design on a TV show. Like they were wearing something that had a neckline this way, and I really liked it, so I decided to make a whole sweater with
But
the
that's
neckline similar.
inspiration too, right? You saw that neckline and you're like, oh, gosh, I really like that. And then you want to make it, and you're doing the same thing, right? It's just in a different angle, different perspective. So
That
don't push yourself down, because I love your designs. I just wish I had like, eight arms, and then like maybe 48 more hours in the day, because there's so many things that I want to make. I just, don't have time. Yeah, so sometimes, I'm in La La Land. So, I come up with these things and I'm just kind of like unicorn, rhinoceros, ballerina. So then sometimes it's just kind of zigzagging like that, right? So this animal series is like that. I have some other ones too. I don't have any dolls. I just have like a sketch, and then I would, I think it's kind of like sweet and silly, and kind of like a lesson to be had, and I will draw it, and I'll be like, hey, what do you think? And he'll be like, oh, I like it. And I'm like, so it's some of that.
Series, are you gonna make like YouTube videos out of them to tell the stories?
I mean, I really hope so. That was I wanted to do that, but I wasn't thinking. And look how big this doll is, right? So usually when I make the dolls for my YouTube series, they're very small, because the set is usually made with shawls, the background.
Oh.
And yeah, so I try to like, make the background. So usually, like if you see some of the series, like for instance, like the Jade Rabbit, I painted the background. So I actually painted the moon and the sky, and then I put it onto my phone, and then I animated it with like, I don't even know what app it is, where you can like kind of make whichever stuff move in a direction that you want, and then you could put like a filter over it to add some sparkles, and I'm like, oh yay, that's exactly what I wanted. So I try to make everything from scratch. So if I do this, oh good, I would like never do anything else for the background. So I probably will make a pocket-sized version, and then maybe I'll put it as a set, or maybe make it for free because they're really small. But this one is a paid pattern, because it's a lot of math for that foot. And I was like, think, like this foot part was. This part was just like so much math, because I wanted it to actually look like point shoes. So I was asking, I have some friends that do ballet, and then I have other friends who have children that do ballet. And I didn't know children don't really need point shoes. This is how much I know about ballet. But then I was like, oh, I feel like as a little girl, you always want to like do that, the point shoes. So then I looked at pictures, and I saw that they're on their tippy toes, and then the heel is like this. Whew, it took a long time to figure out that math. That was really hard. But if it was like just a normal, just rounded foot, I probably, I wouldn't make it the price that it is. It was just like my brain hurt from that math. So I was like, you know what? It took some effort. So
I love that you put so much effort behind it, because like you said, if it was just a rounded foot, like then it would be like, okay, it's a rounded foot, but you see the foot, you see the shape of it in there. I really love
tried this. I feel like I'm still learning, this is like really outside my comfort zone, that foot. I said, I want to challenge myself a little bit, because I want it to look like ballet shoes. And then my son's like, I'm waiting for the doll. I'm waiting. And I said, I don't know how to do it. So because I can't really think in 3D as much when it's complex shapes, I usually try to draw it out. So I actually had a piece of paper where I tried to put the lake on top, and then I drew how wide it was, and then exactly how, like what shape I wanted it to be. And I was like, put it on the paper. Okay, looks good. And then obviously when it's increases and decreases to make it a different shape, I had to kind of use math, right? That was really hard. So I was thinking like, oh, okay, I need to make it equal this many stitches by the end of the round, but I want it to go in here and out here, but I want this part to be flat. And I was like, how do I do that? So it took a lot of like trial and error to do that. A lot of frog yarn.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I use my, the yarn I don't care about, the yarn that I bought when I didn't know anything about yarn, to test that part.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use the yarn that I want.
I like the idea of drawing it on the paper. I've never heard of anyone do that, but that's a great idea. You draw it out so you can actually see the shape. I like that.
I mean, I'd rather use Play-Doh, to be honest, because then you can just stick it on and then like do it around it. But then Play-Doh is so messy. So
yeah,
I'd rather have
want that on your yarn.
I would rather do like 3D, like using some kind of clay and then baking it off. But I don't have time for that,
Yeah,
so because that would actually be. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying because that would make more sense since I'm making 3D versus trying to figure it out on 2D.
Mm-hmm.
So when I draw it on the paper, I'm like, oh, here's the front view, here's the side view, here's the back view, So I have like as I'm making, I'm like front view, side view, okay, back view, and so it's sometimes it's difficult, because it's 2D versus, but at least the general shape, I'm like, all right, it's looking okay. Let's try it.
I love this one. Have you ever like considered making like extreme amigurumi, like those big ones?
Yes. So I many years ago, maybe like 3 years ago, I took 3 strands of DK weight yarn, and I made my chubby bee. So my chubby bee, where is my chubby bee? So I have like the real, like a normal one. This is the normal one. I don't have that extreme one because I gave it away, but it was like, this is my first pattern that I've ever released. And, I was like so proud of this little guy, even though it's such a simple pattern. My son loved it. He just thought it was cute and he named it the Chubby Bee. And then I was thinking, because, I was crazy at the time because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I said, I have yellow and blue DK weight yarn that I bought and it was acrylic yarn. I prefer to work with cotton now, but at the time there's nothing wrong with acrylic. It's just a preference. But at the time I bought all this yarn because I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like, oh, this looks great. Multi-pack, right? Like whatever, let's buy. And then I bought it. And then I had all this yarn in different colors. I didn't know what to do with it. And then I said, okay, yeah, I have 3 colors of this yellow. I have 3 balls of this like light blue. It's lovely. And looking back, I could have designed other things with that yarn. But instead, I took that yarn and then I used a really big hook. And then I made this bee. And then it ended up being like this big. And then I said, oh, this is so squishy and cute. Took like all of my polyfill. I had like no filling left over. And it was just so cute, so adorable. But I have no space in my apartment for extreme amigurumi. Yes. So then ended up giving it away to somebody else, which I think my son is a little bit sad about, because it was ginormous. So I'll just have to make another one someday in the future when he gets his own home. Yeah, extreme amigurumi is amazing. It's really
do it.
I think a lot of people put some kind of structure on the inside to hold its shape so that you don't have to stuff it so much, but I don't know how to do it.
I've heard some people use like there's like, it's not real peas, it's like a fake pea they put in there, because sometimes if you put the real peas in there and you wash it, they might germinate in there.
Oh my gosh, that would happen to me. It's so humid here too. Everything germinates here. You leave tomatoes out and it's like sprouting out of the tomatoes. You have to put everything in the fridge. It's like a living monster. Yeah, I usually I only put stuffing in mine because I don't need it to be weighted anywhere. Usually with my toys, because I want to throw it in the washing machine and throw it in the dryer. So usually I don't put weights in it, but yeah, just stuffing. I'm not adventurous.
So for crocheting, how long on average would you say it takes you to crochet an amigurumi, a doll?
Just to crochet it itself, not the actual designing process.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like a small doll, if it's around like this, I wonder if I have something. Let's see. If it's around like this size, maybe it would take, thank you. This size, maybe it will take me about like 4 hours, only because it depends on the detailing on it. So if it's just maybe just a head, if it's a simple circle, probably not very long, maybe like an hour, hour and a half. But if it's something like this where I have to like make hair and then make the clothes and then the different limbs and sewing it in together, probably like 5 hours for this size. But maybe something like this, oh, long time. Really long time. I think maybe like 8 hours, maybe. I've never actually timed myself, but I'm just imagining because maybe the head alone will take an hour and a half, and then maybe the body will take maybe about an hour. And then, after embroidering, sewing things in, making sure it looks okay, and, little fine tuning details, something like this, maybe about 8 max, maybe 6 to 8, something like that. So it really depends on the detail work on the doll itself, as well as is it simple, is it complex? So it varies in time a little bit depending on that.
So I've heard like some people when I was like into amigurumi, when I was into making it, I've heard like some people saying that you always have to use like one hook size down from what the yarn label calls for. And I think I did go one down or two down. I usually
two down.
I crochet very loosely, so
okay.
To me, like that would make it as tight as it's not, the feeling is not coming out of it. So what other tips do you have for somebody who would be interested in doing amigurumi?
Oh, so as far as hook size, I would recommend up to one hook size lower. Of course, if you are really loose or really tight tension, it will vary. So I would just say you have to experiment until I have an example of early amigurumi and after amigurumi. So this is, oh gosh, it's so dirty. So basically, when you're using a hook and then the hook size is not small enough so the filling is kind of coming out, you can kind of see that there are holes. Oops, where's my camera? Oh, here it is. You can see the stuffing through the stitches. I don't know if you can see. You see all that?
Yeah, I see the stuffing.
So the difference between the two and this one, I think I used one size lower because for my tension it works this way, but you cannot see the stuffing. So if you use like one size, whatever size smaller than the yarn label suggests, so that you can get it, you have to experiment, right? You have to. I would go a half size lower and then keep going lower until it's whatever you want, and then you kind of have a gauge on. Say like maybe for someone else, going down half a size is perfect. Then generally when you make amigurumi in the future, you can just start with half size lower. But for me, I do like 0.75 to one size lower. So yeah.
Is there a wrong or right side for amigurumi?
Yes, I also have an example for this. I am ready. So I can show you because I use like giant yarn. I use this giant t-shirt yarn. As long as you are working in a spiral, right? Because if you're doing rows, you're going in rows, so obviously the stitches will look different. But if you are going in a spiral in the round, there is a right and wrong side. So the right side will have these little V's. So it's just like, because I'm using really extreme yarn, normally there should not be holes. But I was just for this example. So they have little V's here that just go like that. But the wrong side of the work will have these little, these bars. Can you see those like horizontal?
Yeah, that is a very nice way to explain it.
Yeah. So originally I was always having the wrong side of the work on the outside. And I was like, what's the big deal? Like when people would tell me like, hey, that's wrong. And I would say, why does it matter? You know, like, why does it matter that you can see those little hashes, right? And then after, they never explained why. They just said it was. And then for me, as I was making more and more amigurumi, because the best way to learn amigurumi is to test for other designers. So I would volunteer and test just so that I could see. And when you do it on the wrong side, on the outside, when you're increasing and decreasing, it's much more obvious. So that's the reason why you want the right side to be on the outside. So it doesn't look like jagged and weird. So I don't know why it looks that way, but it is that way.
So would it be like different also if you are making, let's say if you were doing those invisible decrease, would you still see it like that in the back as well?
I don't know about the wrong side for invisible decrease, but what's interesting about invisible decreasing is that you go through the front loops. I wonder if I can. Okay, I'm going to crochet it really quick. I don't think I can do it on camera because technologically difficult for me. So I'm going to do like a regular decrease on this gigantic yarn and then an invisible decrease. The reason why invisible decrease is so nice is that there is only one yarn over, and then it stacks the two stitches, but within the same height of the stitch so that it's nice and flat. But when you're doing a regular decrease, you go into the stitch, yarn over, bring it up, go into the next stitch, yarn over, bring it up, yarn over, and then bring it through all the loops to close. So that's a lot of yarning over. So it's very bumpy. So if you have a bunch of decreases, those bumps, it's like, you can see it. But invisible decrease is flat, and the height is the same as one stitch. So you can see it, but it's harder to see. So a regular, let's see. Yeah, I did it. I was like, did I do it? A regular decrease looks like this, and it has that kind of like bumpy look. And then, see, it's so invisible that I can't even tell where it is. Oh, and this one right here is the invisible decrease. You can see that it's stacked. It's so hard to see on camera because it's like opposite of whatever. So it's stacked here. So it's harder to see. So the one that's underneath this is invisible. The one that's where are you at? Where are you at? Decrease. Oh, there you are. That one is bumpy. So over a long, if you're making a bunch of increases, the regular decrease will have kind of a ridge going. I wonder if I have an amigurumi, because now I kind of do invisible decreases instead. Let's see, is this one? They're all invisible. Oh, is this one invisible too? Yeah, I wish I had an example, but so here is an example of it, invisible decrease. Like you can still see it, but it's flat. I wonder if this wonky bee. Yes, can you see the difference?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now that you're seeing it side by side, like the one that you're doing the regular decrease with, like it's just you can see the bumps, you can see the stitches. It looks like more puff, like a puff stitch kind of.
Yes.
Versus the other one, it's you see that like the shape of the decrease, but it's smooth, it's nice. I like that. That's a great example.
It's like a aesthetic thing. So this probably wouldn't bother anybody, but this definitely, I think if you're selling the doll, this looks really nice, and this also looks nice too. So it's really, it doesn't take more time to do the invisible decrease. So I actually have that on my YouTube somewhere. And also, in the future, I'll be using that more in my videos as well. But yeah, so it's like really hard to see unless you compare the two.
Yes. I think also in like the regular decrease might be good, like for if the pattern, like you're making an amigurumi that has like ridges or like lines in them, you could use the regular decrease for that as like a way to add texture to the design.
Yes, I agree. It really does take about the same amount of time. So if somebody were wanting to learn, it wouldn't take that long. You just insert the hook into the front loop, and then you would twist the hook to go into the next front loop, and then yarn over, and then do your like regular single crochet decrease. Yeah. So it's actually really easy.
So for that, you're just doing less yarning over.
Yes, and you work in the front loop, not both.
Both loop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier, actually.
Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, of course, I would love it if people came to my YouTube to see that. But there are many research. You just type in invisible decrease in crochet on YouTube, and it's just so many people are doing it.
I'll just link your whole channel below.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I'm sure like everybody's gonna enjoy like watching those little videos of what you made for your son and stuff. I love those.
I hope so. I mean, if people are happy to watch it, I'm happy to do it. So
I think we do. I think I am. I know I am. I enjoy watching.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You're so supportive all the time. I really appreciate it.
How do you make the limbs of your amigurumi stay? Because for me, I could never get them to match, because like you'll have one next to here and the other one will be in the right place.
So you mean to align it evenly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so hard. So hard to do. Let me see if I have an example. Okay, so say like you have it. See, I brought out all my dolls because I feel like each doll has like different properties, but say for instance that you want this to be even, like these limbs, like for instance for these arms, what you would do is you would need to get some nice pins that have the little I don't know what it's called, like it has a bead on top so that you don't lose the pin inside the doll. So you would position it and you would take a look and be like, oh, I want the arm here. Okay. And then you stick those pins in, but you wouldn't stick it in where you're sewing. You would stick it like below or wherever, so that it doesn't move. And then you get the other arm and you put the pins in as well. And then you can, adjust it with the pins, but just make sure the pins are secure so it doesn't move around. And then you do your whip stitches when you're happy with the positioning. I will tell you, I hate sewing. So I don't like this part, but this part is very important. If you don't do it, then it kind of makes it's the make or break of the doll, which is really frustrating for me. So I try not to design things that have limbs. So like let's see. One of the most, I did this festival Amigurumi thing in July. And so I was just like, what is the minimal amount of limbs that I can do? So this is, so I actually did it so that the legs are part of the body because I don't want to sew. And the only thing you have to do is the arms and the ears. Aside from the eyes, I don't mind because they're flat and they're on the face. It's pretty hard to mess up the face, but the limbs are so hard to make even on both sides. So yeah, so I try not to design things that have a lot of limbs because I really dislike sewing. But pins will help, and also when you're putting on limbs, sometimes I get asked why the arms are staying to the side and not flying out. Because a lot of times when you're doing whip stitches, the arms will come out like this.
Yes.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? And actually, I don't know if it's a proper technique or not, but what I do is after you've done, the pinning and everything, I do like a combination of a whip stitch and a back stitch. Is it called a back stitch? So I'll do like one whip stitch that goes over and around. And then I'll take that one into the next stitch and do a back stitch back to where I was. Okay. And then I'll do a diagonal whip stitch into the current stitch that I'm doing. So it's like a combination of whip stitch and back stitch because the back stitches keep it to the side. The whip stitches are very secure. So it's something I think people have to find their own groove because that is just like, I try to explain that to my friends. They're like, I don't understand what you're doing. And I said, you know what? If you're just doing a combination of different types of just experiment, I think you can find your own way. But for me, combining whip stitches with a back stitch usually keeps it to the side pretty well because I did that with my mermaids too, and their arms are to the side without it feeling like it's stuck on the side either. So, you can still move it around, but generally it will stay down. So, I don't know. Something like that.
I'm learning something new. I'm learning a lot from you right now. Seriously.
Oh, I'm so
the whip stitch and the back stitch, because it's like you're pulling it forward, but you're also pushing it back at the same time. It's like the same thing like we were talking about Tunisian crochet. Like, when you're doing what's that stitch I love so much, the honeycomb one.
Oh, I love that stitch.
I love that one.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So you are pulling it forward and pulling it backward at the same time, so it doesn't curl. So I'm guessing it kind of might be the same thing.
Yeah, I think so. And it's, maybe it won't work for other people, but it's been working for me. So, you just give it a try and see, I would say. And also, it's not the end of the world if the limbs are going up, it's pretty cute. It looks like it's ready for a hug. Like, hug me. So
I know some people put what's called, the pipe cleaners? Is it pipe cleaners?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll do that if there's like a tail or something, but the only thing is I have yet to figure out how to do it so that the metal part of the pipe cleaner doesn't come back out. Because even if you fold that pipe cleaner in half, so I'm thinking maybe you have to make another, like if you're making an arm, maybe you have to make a smaller arm and then put the pipe cleaner in there and then put that arm inside the other arm so it doesn't come out.
Or you could like before you put some stuffing in there and then put something harder like those beads and stuff in there so that the pipe cleaner doesn't go through that.
I mean, anything not to make another arm. That sounds great. Yeah. Actually, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll try that. Like wrap it around like a small bead and then put the bead on the bottom. That's a great idea, Elizabeth. You should be doing amigurumi. Yeah, that's a great idea because it would actually be wrapped around that bead, and then the bead cannot escape.
Exactly.
I'll try that. Let you know.
Thank you so much, Annie, for being on the episode today. I really enjoyed chatting with you. Is there anything you want to share with the audience? Do you want to let them know where they can find you everywhere on social media?
You can just find me at Anniegurumi. I think there are a few Anniegurumis online, but mine is just Annie Gurumi. Not Annie with a Y, Annie without an E, without an I. Yeah, just normal Annie. Everywhere. Etsy, Ravelry, YouTube, Instagram. Instagram, I'm the most active. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I really enjoyed this time together.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and listening to Annie and how she comes up with her ideas for Amigurumi. It is just so amazing, like where creativity comes from, how she teaches her son through her dolls. Like it's just, to me, it's just amazing. And I really love talking to her. Even after we were done recording this, we stayed here and we chatted for another hour. So it's like she's talking to her is like really talking to a sister. I love her. And I hope you guys will give her a follow. Check her out. Like she has some amazing patterns. And as you guys can see, everything she creates has a story behind it and a meaningful story, a story that's going to be helping your children and even adults becoming better people in this world. Like this episode and leave a comment below. Tell me which part you like the best. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.